Former President of Mexico, Felipe Calderon, has some serious doubts about Donald Trump's math regarding his so-called plan to build a wall around America. Speaking to CNBC, Calderon asked what the point of building a wall was if immigration into the United States is at a trickle, if that. Numbers have suggested a decrease in immigration leading up to 2015, where we then saw negative immigration, basically more people leaving than actually coming in. And believe it or not, that is the truth. And I'm not making up these numbers for all you Trump lovers out there. These are official figures from the Pew Research Center. Margaret, anyway, speaking directly about paying for this wall, we're going to get to some other very, very good points that Mr. Calderon made. But specifically speaking about this wall, here's his thoughts.
Building a wall, Mexican people, we are not going to pay any single cent for such a stupid wall.
To the point, I get what he's saying. Clearly not very happy about that plan, because not only does Donald Trump want to cut the Mexicans off with a physical barrier, he also wants them to pay for it. This guy doesn't see how that's ever going to happen. I think most of the world does not think that that's actually going to happen. But Donald Trump seems very adamant about that idea. But one very good point that Calderon goes to from this is a bit of a segue. He talks really about how the first loser of such a policy, building a wall and cutting off the Mexicans, would of course be the USA, this isolationist route when talking about Mexico, because think about it, they buy so much of our products, depending on what we're talking about, they can be seen as our biggest partners in trade, so, or at least one of, top three.
The idea of a tax, is that where you're going with this? So
the idea of tax,
would be to tax an import-export situation because of the Mexican trade. Is that where that would be the circumventing of we're not paying for this? There would be like how would that work? I'm assuming that's what we're about to get into.
Yeah, well, basically what he's saying is, look, your biggest trade partner here, you want to strain relations by building this wall, which, first off, there's absolutely no point of building a wall because we're seeing that immigration is completely at a standstill, So now is not the time to build a wall. The 1990s or 80s was the time to build the wall. Now you would be essentially wasting billions of your own dollars because we're not going to pay for it. There's no way that the Mexicans are going to pay for it, because if you want to strain relations with Mexico and tax them heavily and make them build this wall, well, now you're screwing over your biggest trade partner, and that's strategically not the best idea. And if we're going to talk about immigration, again, a lot of people who are here illegally come from overstayed visas that they got lawfully. They came in with airplanes, which, as we know, go over walls.
Look, I mean, you understand the heated sentiment and the inflammatory comments that have been made during the race for the GOP ticket. Of course, that a former Mexican president would respond to them. I don't find that all too surprising, but breaking down the numbers of what you're saying and how Pew is saying, look, there's a recessiveness to immigration in terms of geography. I'm wondering if we're going to ever see a response from anybody talking about the immigration issue.
Yeah, that's I guess that is a very good point. But another thing that he brings up is has to do completely, if we're talking about the immigration thing, it has completely to do with the unemployment rates compared with Mexico, right? America has seen a big slowdown since our recession. Meanwhile, Mexico seems to be on the up right now, and they're saying, a lot of these students who would have normally thought about going off abroad to work for companies, car companies, for example. He used Mazda and Honda, for example. He said no longer they need to do that because those companies are coming to Mexico now, and they can get these jobs here. So he's just saying that we have to shift the way that we think, the way that we see Mexicans in all. And then he had a nice little statement about Trump directly that I want to say. I just want to go over this quote by Mr. Calderon. It's kind of funny. He says something without directly saying it. Let's see if you guys can infer what he said. Here it is. It is incredible that a quite admirable society like the American society could produce such kind of candidates. I cannot understand that. No offense to America. So Donald Trump is ambitious, but not exactly very well-informed man. I don't want to say ignorant, but he's not very well-informed. So stopping very short of saying Donald Trump's an idiot. Your takes, Margaret?
Look, I mean, I shared them with you. I think Calderon is, I mean, it's not shocking he would comment. He's got to say something. He was a former head of a country. I was watching South Park last night, not to digress, but they covered this issue. And I wish that you and I talked a little bit more about, that sentiment that maybe it is misplaced, that people that have this job fear, they did it in a really comical way, but you addressed that about having these companies, these U.S. companies actually move. They've moved across the border, and perhaps addressing those fears next, which is something you and I should do in a different.
That's a good point, but we don't want to let people like Donald Trump convince us that the Chinese and the Mexicans and the whole world are coming here and stealing our country away from us. That's what they want you to think.
It's addressing ideologies like one step at a time. But
right, and then calling them rapists. I assume some of them are good people, but they're rapists. That's, I think, what's really pissing off a lot of these people and prompting these kinds of comments coming out. So again, I think Donald Trump maybe should take note of how a president should speak ill of another person, keeping it diplomatic while still calling them an idiot. Anyways, that's how the Mexican president feels, the ex-Mexican president, I should say. What do you guys think?